with anything. Joining us now, author of #1 New York Times bestseller, The Russian Hoax, The Illicit Scheme to Clear Hillary Clinton, Frame Donald Trump, Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett, and Fox News investigative reporter and contributor Sara Carter. Sara, we'll start with the news as we always do, then we'll get Greg's analysis. Let's first, we have the FBI and the DOJ colluding to leak phony Russian lies to damage the president, the same DOJ that hired Mueller and the same Mueller team or steal surrounding the information. Now,
Sean, I think these are some of the most important documents and important text messages to come out yet, because what they show is that the DOJ and the FBI high-level senior officials were working hand in hand together to leak information on a counterintelligence investigation. They basically confirmed
an ongoing investigation.
That's right, and an ongoing investigation exactly on Carter Page, a foreign intelligence surveillance warrant. I mean, this is, I believe, and Greg can explain this, I think, more clearly. I was speaking to intelligence officials about this, and they said this is absolutely prosecutable. I mean, you do not talk, confirm, leak to the press anything about a counterintelligence investigation. I think this is going to be very important moving forward, and I think this is a main reason why the president needs to declassify the rest of the documents that you just spoke about, the FISA documents, as well as the Bruce Orr 302s. Those are his interviews with the FBI.
And whatever,
and as sources have told me,
Strzok and Page communications that haven't been released. This is brand new today. How did we not see this before?
Because they were withholding the information. The Department of Justice is withholding that information, and it trickles out slowly to Congress because Congress has been fighting over and over for these documents. Just think how many more documents we haven't seen, Sean.
Now, this goes to the issue of firewalls that Steele was talking about with Orr. This goes to the issue of the insurance policy with Strzok and Page. This goes to the issue of Christopher Steele asking Bruce Orr if he got his information to the special counsel. This is what we have. I don't think you can get more corrupt. You have the FBI and the DOJ. DOJ is running this investigation, supposedly, colluding to leak what we now know to be lies to the American people to hurt the president.
That's right.
The same DOJ hired Mueller, and Steele is feeding information through Bruce Orr to Mueller vis-a-vis Weissman.
It's the definition of corruption. If there was ever any doubt that Comey's FBI and Obama's Department of Justice were engaged in an illicit and illegal scheme to frame Donald Trump, this should erase any doubt. And they're bragging about it in their text messages. They were using deliberately, knowingly, willfully false information that they were peddling, in this case, to the Washington Post, which is so biased and gullible they swallowed it hook, line, and sinker. And then afterwards, they're bragging about it to each other.
When you get Orr and McCabe and Page and Strzok and Steele, and then you look at they don't want to be exposed. Steele didn't want to be exposed. And the firewalls, and they're leaking to the special counsel. I'm thinking we now know what the insurance policy is. These are the five hating the five big Trump haters.
Policy in the event that Hillary Clinton lost the election.
And this is post-election in April of 2017.
Exactly. Was to frame Donald Trump and undo the decision of American voters, undo the election results.
With lies.
That's right. And it's a violation of federal felony statutes, most notably abuse of power. You are not allowed to use your public office to interfere or disrupt with somebody's constitutional rights, the rights to privacy. Carter Page, for example, and the president of the United States peddling a false story that they knew was fabricated.
At this point in time in April of 2017, this is Rod Rosenstein's Department of Justice. Jeff Sessions is recusing. And now he has a special counsel, but he's got another little problem, is that he's up to his eyeballs in all of this. He appointed the special counsel, and he himself signed the fourth FISA warrant, the third renewal application.
Actually, Sean, it was the fourth renewal application, and he knew everything, or he should have known everything that happened prior to that. So the first three applications, those first three renewals that went over and over again until he finally got it, had all the information backlogged, all the information that the FBI would have had, Peter Strzok. So Rod Rosenstein, this is Rosenstein's FISA, and he should have known. And I think that is why the DOJ and the FBI are fighting so hard not to declassify the information. Those 302s by Bruce Orr, all of that information that's contained in those interviews will show that they withheld exculpatory information from the FISC courts. When they get those 302s and they compare them to the application warrant, I think all of our answers will come out. And I've also been told it's going to be explosive.
Who goes to jail?
A lot of people could be subject to prosecution, including all the individuals, Rod Rosenstein, James Comey, Sally Yates, Andrew McCabe, who deceived the court, perpetrated a fraud on the court deliberately.
Do you realize that what we have here is that they are leaking, the Department of Justice coordinating leaks of unverified information and Russian lies to the American people?
That's right. And yet they refuse to answer those same questions when Congress asks them.
All right. Thank you both. Now, the man at the center of all this, Carter Page, he'll weigh in on tonight's breaking news. Also, Ed Henry and much more straight ahead. Lawmakers are now pushing for President Trump to declassify FISA documents that led to the government spying on former Trump campaign advisor Carter Page, who will join us in a second. Joining us now with more first is Fox News chief national correspondent Ed Henry. Ed.
Sean, great to see you. That's right. House Republicans are renewing their push for the president to declassify a whole series of key documents after receiving a batch of new text messages from the FBI and the Justice Department that raised new questions about anti-Trump bias. In particular, Republican Mark Meadows firing off a letter to the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein, about these new texts suggesting there was a coordinated effort by FBI and DOJ officials to leak damaging information about the president and some of his advisors to keep the Russia investigation alive. In particular, an April 10th, 2017 text exchange between FBI officials Peter Strzok and Lisa Page suggest they had what they called a media leak strategy. The following day, the Washington Post published a story about FISA's surveillance of former Trump campaign advisor Carter Page. Then on April 12th, Strzok congratulated his colleague over two negative articles about Carter Page, saying that one was worse than the other for the Trump team. Strzok adding, quote, "well done." Now, Mark Meadows' letter to Rosenstein, it's interesting it went to him because, remember, he signed off on one of the FISA warrants that continued the surveillance of Carter Page. Republicans want to see the president declassify documents that may shed more light on how the DOJ handled the investigations of both President Trump and Democrat Hillary Clinton around the election. House Republicans also want to see the documents that may shed light on why Justice Department official Bruce Orr kept in such close touch with the former British spy Christopher Steele, who, of course, put together the dossier that laid the groundwork for the surveillance of Carter Page. Sean?
All right, dossier that even Steele himself doesn't stand by, as we know from the interrogatory in Great Britain. Ed Henry, thank you. Here now with an exclusive interview reaction is former Trump campaign associate. He is at the very center of tonight's breaking news, the FISA abuse scandal. Carter Page, great to see you, sir. Just to remind people, when you were on with me last time, you traveled to Russia and other places, and when you came back, they often debriefed you.
Very often, yeah.
And you cooperated with your FBI because you're a patriot?
Throughout my life, yeah.
And with the CIA and other agencies? Mm-hmm. And so they considered you a friend?
I always thought they did, yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're at the heart of all of this. The, quote, media leak strategy, which was on April the 10th, 2017, Strzok and Page communicating with each other. Then it leaks the next day, the 11th, in the Washington Post. Then Strzok is congratulating Page for a job well done with two derogatory articles about you. That's the FBI and the DOJ coordinating against you to leak in an ongoing investigation. Your reaction?
You know, Sean, Tom Finn, I think, said it best on your show and, you know, going back weeks. It's not about me. They're just trying to get to the Trump administration, the Trump campaign. This is just a way of tearing down all the great things that President Trump is doing.
Well, let's be honest here, though. I mean, this is about your name, your reputation, your whole life, and it's an ongoing investigation. You just heard what Sara Carter said. 302s are released. The unredacted portions of the FISA are released. You are going to be exonerated with exculpatory evidence withheld. Let's assume Sarah's right, considering she hasn't been wrong yet. What would that mean to you?
Well, Sean, I just remember 6 years ago tonight, my good friend Chris Stevens lost his life in a very similar situation. Where these people in Washington, there's no concern about his safety, and they're very much worried about their narrative for the media. That's the focus. Has nothing to do with safety. They're just focused on their own spin for their own personal gratification.
A systemic culture of media leaking by high-ranking officials at the FBI and DOJ related to ongoing investigations. That's what we're talking about, and you're in the center of it. My mother was a prison guard. My dad was family court probation. I had more people in the NYPD. The two people we referred to as deity were FBI guys. We're not talking about the FBI. We're talking about a few people in the FBI and the DOJ that abused their power and basically used you as the single person to go out there to get the president. Do you have any doubt they're trying to get the president now?
Oh, there's no doubt whatsoever.
When you spoke to these people, now, interestingly, you haven't been indicted.
Of course not.
Are they talking to you anymore?
I haven't talked with anyone from the U.S. government this year, other than the people in the DOJ, where I was, I have my case against the U.S. government, but and they keep, similar to the FISA court, Southern District of New York keeps giving these false testimonies to the
about
court.
You.
About, I have a case against the U.S. government and, the fake news propaganda.
So you have lawsuits that you're moving?
Absolutely.
And you don't even want any money, you told me.
$1, just, nominal.
Well, how do you pay your lawyers with $1? I don't know anybody.
I want to fix this terrible thing that's happened to our country. This is just on principle, but it's just so corrupt right now.
So tell me if this is wrong. The FBI and the DOJ, we learned through these text messages, were colluding to leak what are phony Russian lies about you, and then the same DOJ hires Mueller to investigate it. But the DOJ is working with the FBI leaking it. And then we find out through Bruce Orr and Christopher Steele's contacts, Christopher Steele is saying, did you get my info to your friends in the Special Counsel? Tell me what's wrong with that picture.
Well, Sean, look, I have dozens of lawyers that I'm up against in DOJ, and that's on the civil division. It's been, told to the friends at the Washington Post, New York Times, that I talked with the Special Counsel.
They ever apologized to you for taking leaks that are unverified?
Absolutely not. Yeah. And, a lot of this stuff is still blacked out.
By the way, if they do, it's going to be on page 836 in the bottom right-hand corner. Nobody will find it.
Hopefully they start fixing this a little bit, Sean.
Are you going to sue them?
Well, it's just like the first, the fake intel report by Clapper, Comey, Brennan on January 6, 2017, 2 weeks before the inauguration. It was split into two themes. One is the hacking. The other is government propaganda. I have a legal action right now on the government propaganda. We'll see about the hacking.
We get this information that we wanted, declassified and unredacted. Are you convinced there's exculpatory evidence they withheld? Do you know that there's exculpatory evidence?
The more information that comes out, it's just going to keep showing how ridiculous this whole thing is.
Do you think when you look at the players, Steele, Orr, Strzok, Page, McCabe, do you think that was the insurance policy?
Sure, it definitely seems like it.
All right, good luck. Appreciate it. Sorry you were lied about.
Wouldn't have happened with that.
All right, Alan Dershowitz, Andy McCarthy, react next. Straight ahead. All right, here with reaction to my interview with Carter Page, author of best-selling book, New York Times, The Case Against Impeaching Trump, Harvard Law professor. Alan Dershowitz is with us, also Fox News contributor Andy McCarthy. It comes down to this. Both of you, I know, are good people. I know, Andy, your work in the Southern District of New York. I know where you stand on indicting a ham sandwich and criminalizing political differences, Professor Dershowitz. But when you have the upper echelon of the FBI and the DOJ coordinating leaks that turn out, Professor, to be untrue in an ongoing investigation, at what point do people get held accountable for this?
Well, this is a very serious problem. We have too many leaks. Many of them are unlawful. Many of them are in violation of the laws and the rules. And we have too little disclosure of allegedly classified material and exculpatory information. They have it backwards. They should be disclosing this material that they claim is classified, 95% of it designed to protect people, not to protect national security. And they must reveal exculpatory material. But they should never be leaking. And the tragedy is that the former head of the FBI, James Comey, gave permission to leak when he leaked material and laundered it through a Columbia law professor. That put the green light to many people in saying, hey, if the head of the FBI can leak, why can't we?
What about the coordination, the FBI and the DOJ? You know, they even say it, Andy, media leak strategy. Then they leak. And then they, the job well done on 2 derogatory articles about the guy we just had on. Now, maybe a lot of people don't have empathy,
Sean,
but I don't want to be leaked about by the FBI and the DOJ, and I don't think either one of you do.
Well, nobody wants to be leaked about, but I don't want to get ahead of what we know here. I've been in investigations where there were leak problems, and sometimes you have to have a leak strategy because your investigation's being damaged by leaks. Other times, you have what I regard as a corrupt endeavor by government officials to intentionally leak information in order to, as they say, tickle the wires. That is to say, you have people who are under surveillance, you put information out in the media, and you see how they react, who they speak to, et cetera. It's not a tactic that I think is a worthy one, but it does happen. So I think we need to find out. I agree with Professor Dershowitz that what we need here is disclosure, disclosure, disclosure. But I don't want to pounce on what we don't know yet, because we don't know what
we have 2
leak
text
strategy
messages
means.
that talk about a media leak strategy, and then they're congratulating each other over leaking about Carter Page and talking about further leaks. Let me ask this, Professor, because there's a big question the president now is going to have to answer. And I have not seen them, but I hear if he declassifies and sends out unredacted FISA applications, the 302s that Sara Carter says has exculpatory evidence in there that they withheld, the Gang of 8 material, all of the Page-Strzok emails and texts, that it will be explosive and it'll show corruption at the highest levels. More people, my sources, each one has said it's at least a 9 or a 10 out of 10 in terms of corruption exposure.
Well, I think, first of all, sunlight is the best disinfectant, as Justice Brandeis said. And so we ought to see all of this information. The public ought to have the opportunity to judge. The media ought to be able to assess it. It ought to be put in context. Let's see what there is. Let's not have selective disclosures, either by Republicans or Democrats, which help their narrative. Let's disclose everything we can, unless it really raises serious issuhes of national security.
By the way, you sound like Spartacus.
Put it out.
You sound like Spartacus now.
Well,
no, but in all seriousness, yeah, you're right. And Andy, would you call for the release of this information?
There is an issue on that side too. I mean, we shouldn't be withholding material about Kavanaugh either. I think what's good for the goose is good for the gander. It has to come out on all sides.
I'm not disagreeing, but Kavanaugh, in fairness, they released more documents than the 5 previous nominees. But go ahead, Andy.
Not enough, though.
Yeah, I would say not just on Republicans and Democrats, but not by the FBI and the intelligence community. The big problem you have when you have a government that leaks is that it cherry picks leaks so that it presents you a version of events that may not be reality.
We specifically...
Of course, he should have done it the first day in office.
And the president has the power to declassify, but he should do it not politically. He shouldn't do it to serve his interests or the interest of his party, but the interests of full disclosure and the American citizens' ability to read for themselves. You know, when we hold information back, we insult the American public, and they have a right to see it. That's what democracy is all about. You can't have democracy without information, and so we need more disclosure and fewer leaks.
Last word, Andy.
2 years. It's 2 years. Put it out. 2 years.
Yeah. Is Rod Rosenstein conflicted in this, considering now it was his DOJ, FBI, and they're the ones now that we find out they have people leaking, and then he's appointing Mueller, and he signed the last FISA warrant? Is he conflicted?
He is so conflicted. He is so conflicted, even beside the fact that he's a potential witness in the case.
Bingo.
He has become a player in this case rather than the objective, neutral chief prosecutor.
You agree with that, Andy?
I do, and I think his memo, his August 2nd memo, which is roughly contemporaneous with the FISA warrant that he signed, also should be unsealed and revealed.
All right, thank you both. The house of cards is about to fall. When we come back, the latest